Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. A fox demon and a dragon head lion is creating havoc in Jade Dragon Lake. Not only did they bathe in the lake, they even beat you up. Jiu Linuan had just returned from the palace and the daoist who was guarding Jade Dragon Lake came forward to complain. Jiu Linuan's heart couldn't help trembling violently as he cried out, "The Fish King among the red dragon carps was captured away by that dragon lion? Whose fox demon and dragon lion have such huge guts? I have assumed this position for just a month and such a thing happened. Who is trying to make me wear tight shoes?" Before he could digest this news, another person came to report. Grand Chancellor, the fox raised by Academician Qin of Imperial College had chopped down Ambition Tree and used it to roast the fish. That fish seems to be the Fish King of Jade Dragon Lake which got roasted and eaten. Imperial Academician Qin and Imperial Scholar Wei Yong are packing up the fish bones now, trying to get rid of the evidence. Jiu Linuan couldn't help being surprised and delighted. This brat, I was worrying that I had no method to create difficulties for him. Now it can be said that he had delivered himself to my door. This matter is enough for him to be beheaded 100 times. Now B.A. Shan, that idiot, should be speechless. He went into high spirits and immediately stood up while saying, "Let's go, follow me to arrest them. We need both material evidence and witness testimony, just send them under escort to Temple of Justice to be interrogated by the official there, executing his whole family. We'll then send a memorial to the Emperor, reporting to him about this matter. What about the scholar called Wei Yong? Arrest him as well and punish him together with Qin Mu." Jiu Linuan smiled. "I was still saying who was making me wear tight shoes, but now as I see it, this pair of shoes ain't tight but just right." Jiu Linuan and the rest barged into Scholar's residence, but they didn't find Qin Mu in his courtyard. There were only a fox and a dragon Qilin who was snoring. Jiu Linuan woke up this dragon Qilin and asked, "Where the brat with the surname Qin?" Dragon Qilin raised his head and took a glance at them before replying slowly, "He was still here just now. People from the palace came to invite him over." Could it be that the emperor had already known about this matter, therefore, he had summoned him into the palace to behead him? Jiu Linuan chuckled, "This brat still has my junior protector sword, beheading him is also letting him off lightly. What are you guys spacing out for? Arrest the fox and the dragon Qilin. I'll be entering the emperor's palace and personally see how this brat dies for myself." After he had finished saying that, he hurried away. The few chancellors that came with him and the daoist guarding Jade Dragon Lake immediately made use of a chain to chain up this dragon Qilin. Hu Linga wanted to run away, but she was also captured. Jiu Linuan rushed to the palace energetically and requested to meet the emperor. After a moment, a guard reported, "His Majesty is at Imperial Garden, may Lord Jiu head over there." Jiu Linuan was astonished, beheading the Qin brat in Imperial Garden? His Majesty seems to be really angry. When he came to Imperial Garden, he heard laughter coming over and Jiu Linuan was bewildered. He walked over and saw Emperor Yangfeng help Empress Dowager by the arm while a few officials followed behind them. Qin Mu was behind Empress Dowager on the left, saying something which made Empress Dowager laugh. Emperor Yangfeng saw him and waved his hand to summon him over. He then asked warmly, "Official, what are you here for?" Jiu Linuan hesitated for a moment and said, "Academician Qin let a dragon Qilin jump in Jade Dragon Lake to catch the Fish King before eating it. Jade Dragon Lake is the drinking ground of the royal family and red dragon carp is an imperial cuisine of the royal family. For Academician Qin to be so impudent, this is a death crime. I don't dare to hide it, therefore, I'm here to report this to the emperor." Something like that actually happened? Emperor Yangfeng looked at Qin Mu and asked, "What does official Qin have to say? I'm a person outside the sphere of civilization and didn't know about the rules of the capital city, therefore I've been rude and impetuous." Qin Mu said, "I didn't know that Jade Dragon Lake was the property of the royal family and didn't know that I couldn't eat the fish in the lake. I'm deeply guilty and may your highness deal with me. This is a death crime." Emperor Yangfeng looked at him and said, "Even though I recognize your worth, the law is law. How do you want me to deal with you?" Jiu Linuan smiled, Your Highness, according to the law, you will have to execute his whole family. Empress Dowager smiled. Emperor, I also think the little divine physician should be beheaded. Emperor Yangfeng was slightly stunned and smiled. Why does mother say such a thing? Empress Dowager walked forward calmly and said leisurely, of course he should be beheaded. If you don't execute little divine physician, how would the world know that the emperor value a fish more than a human? If you don't execute academician Qin, how would the world know the emperor value water more than a human? Only when you execute him, would the talents in the world know that the emperor would execute a reputable divine physician that has cured me just for a mouthful of water and a fish. Only then would they know the emperor is an incapable ruler. Emperor Yangfeng laughed out loud and waved, Lord Jiu, you shouldn't bother me for such trifles. Retreat. Jiu Linuan was bewildered. This? Retreat, retreat. Emperor Yangfeng waved his hand and said, you didn't guard the Jade Dragon Lake properly, but I won't punish you for your crime. After all, you are new in Imperial College. What you have done today has already made my head ache. You actually fought with Chancellor Ba Shan and brought shame on me. If you had won, it's still fine, but you didn't. A Grand Chancellor can't beat a Chancellor. I lost face all because of you. You better return to reflect on yourself. Acknowledged. Jiu Linuan felt grieved and was about to leave when Qin Mu said, Lord Jiu, my fox and that dragon Qilin, please don't make things difficult for them. Jiu Linuan's heart leaped and heard Empress Dowager laughing. I presume he won't even dare to. That's right, Emperor, you haven't rewarded little divine physician for curing me. Mother is already an Imperial Academician, a 6th-ranking official. I can't raise him anymore. He is still young after all. We'll talk about it after a few years, in case the officials of the Imperial Court say I favor him. Little divine physician, tell me more about the interesting stuff when you were little. Jiu Linuan walked further away and went out of the palace to return to Imperial College. He had a belly full of anger yet nowhere to vent. The daoist that was guarding Jade Dragon Lake immediately went forward and asked, Grand Chancellor, have the thief been executed? It's all your fault for meddling. All you have to do is to look after the lake, yet you created such a ruckus, making me humiliated. Jiu Linuan stared at him and shouted, release that fox and dragon Qilin. The daoist guarding the lake felt extremely wrong. He didn't know what he had done wrong and why Jiu Linuan got so angry at him, and could only release Hu Linga and the dragon Qilin. Grand Chancellor, we had already sent men to capture Wei Yong, but Wei Yong was following Chancellor Ba Shan and he didn't let us take him away. How do you think? What's Wei Yong's background? He's from Duke Wei's family. Don't look for trouble when there's none. In the Imperial Garden, Empress Dowager chatted with Qin Mu for a while more. Qin Mu then checked her pulse and wrote down a few prescriptions and said, Empress Dowager, you're recovering well, there's no hidden danger left behind. Good. Empress Dowager smiled, thanks for the trouble, little divine physician. Qin Mu stood up to make his leave. Emperor Yangfeng smiled, Dear Minister, hold your step, there's something I want to talk to you about. Qin Mu stopped and Emperor Yangfeng walked to him while waving his hands to let the eunuch and palace maids fall back. He walked out of Imperial Garden while smiling. My Imperial Academician, Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult, abandoned person of great ruins, disciple of Jade Face Poison King, Minister Qin sure has a lot of identities. Qin Mu was slightly stunned and his footsteps subconsciously slowed down. If Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor could know he was the new Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult, Emperor Yangfeng naturally had his ways to know as well. Emperor Yangfeng had already walked far away and he turned his head back to ask, Dear Minister, why are you not catching up? Qin Mu hurried to catch up and smiled, Your Majesty has a flood of good fortune that fills the heavens. Emperor Yangfeng laughed, Heavenly Devil Cult as the #1 sect of the Devil Path, the #1 sacred ground, for their cult master to be the student of the Son of Heaven, I indeed have a flood of good fortune that fills the heavens. However, it can be a fortune or it can be a calamity. Dear Minister Qin, do you think it's a fortune or it's a calamity? Qin Mu smiled, Your Majesty, if Dao Master of Dao Sect yields to Your Majesty, what position would Your Majesty confer on him? Emperor Yangfeng said solemnly, Dao Master of Dao Sect, the head of the righteous path in this world, I will confer him as upper first ranking, allowing him to be called king, inheriting the title generation after generation. Qin Mu then asked, if Rulai of Great Thunderclap Monastery yields to your majesty, what position would your majesty confer on him? Emperor Yangfeng said, Rulai is best in the Buddhist path, and if he is willing to become an official of the imperial court, I will confer him as upper first ranking, allowing him to be called primogenitor. Qin Mu said, the three sacred grounds of eternal peace, the emperor will confer the sect masters of Dao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery as upper first ranking, calling king and becoming primogenitor. Heavenly Saint Cult is also a sacred ground, and the cult master of Heavenly Saint Cult had taken the initiative to yield, yet your majesty only confer an unpresentable sixth ranking and still ask if it is a fortune or calamity. Aren't you making the faithful officials and loyalists bitterly disappointed? Emperor Yangfeng was slightly stunned and nodded his head. What you said is reasonable. However, I can't promote you immediately. You're still too young after all. If I promote you directly, people would gossip and they would be able to guess your identity. Qin Mu agreed. Emperor Yangfeng remained silent for a moment. I know there are some grudges between you and Jiu Linuan, and also know you took his junior protector sword away. You're the cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult. You need to be more magnanimous and don't always make him wear tight shoes. He is placed in Imperial College by me, and if you make him too embarrassed, it won't look good on me as well. Qin Mu felt a little wronged. Your Majesty, how would I dare to make him wear tight shoes? Emperor Yangfeng seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. Didn't you just make him wear tight shoes today, putting him on the spot? You can be at ease. No one would dare to say they surpass Imperial Preceptor in being extremely daring. If I dare to use him, I will also dare to use you. There's no need for any suspicions in your heart. All right, you can fall back. Qin Mu walked out of the palace and felt refreshed. He let out a murky breath and completely relaxed. Since Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had known his identity, he would be slightly worried if Emperor Yangfeng didn't. Now that the Emperor and Imperial Preceptor both knew his identity, he would instead be safe and wouldn't be worried that these two big shots would lay their hands on him. Over 10 days later, Qin Mu's West House was piled up with great abundance coins exchanged using the dragon's saliva. Before Chancellor Ba Shan brought Wei Yong and Prince Minue out for experience, he went to his West House to carry away a few bags of coins. Qin Mu didn't mind at all since he was rich. During these few days, he would refine Scarlet Fire Spirit Pills as well as another spirit pill that could replenish spirit whenever he was free. When he refined this kind of spirit pill, he would use the Han technique of Buddhism. Therefore, the refined spirit pills would give off Buddha voice, which was why Qin Mu called these spirit pills the Spirit Buddha pills. He went to the warehouse to buy herbs these few days and almost bought all the dozens of herbs he needed. There was going to be a large-scale training in Imperial College recently, and scholars were chosen to go to the front lines. Directorates of each hall were to bring scholars to the front lines to quell the rebellion. Qin Mu was also picked by Jiu Linuan, who said he must definitely go to the front lines because Qin Mu was a 6th-ranking Imperial Academician and had almost the same treatment as the directorates. Therefore Jiu Linuan also gave Qin Mu a few scholars to let him lead. These scholars were all scholars of the Five Elements realm from scholars' residents who didn't have much battle prowess. Their cultivations were way inferior to the divine arts practitioners in divine arts residence. In Qin Mu's team, other than him being an Imperial Academician, there was no directorate. Jiu Linuan's reason was that since Qin Mu was an Imperial Academician and had a high official position, he should lead a team by himself. The scholars that were assigned to Qin Mu may be selectively chosen, the top-notch of scholars' residents. However, they were far inferior compared to the scholars selected from Royalties Park and Divine Arts residents. With strongest practitioners lying everywhere in Imperial College, there was no lack of experts. Jiu Linuan making Qin Mu lead a team for experience was obviously using public office to avenge his personal grudge. The scholars going with Qin Mu to the front lines were all acquaintances. They were Chen Wanyun, Monk Yun Qiu, Yu Qinghong, who brought Wolf Slave along, Sai Yinxiang, and finally, Qin Yu. However, since Qin Yu was the younger generation of the capital city's Qin family, he had a deep background and found Jiu Linuan to give him a word. Thus he was relocated from Qin Mu's team to another team which was led by a directorate, avoiding Qin Mu's sure-death team. Qin Mu finished refining a furnace of Scarlet Fire Spirit Pills and stretched his body. He had been refining pills these few days to ensure that the Dragon Qin would have enough to eat when they reached the front lines, thus he had no time to meet those few scholars. Monk Yun Q found Chen Wanyan and Yu Qinghong to discuss with them. This time Grand Chancellor made Academician Qin bring us out for experience and to a place of turmoil. I reckon we won't make it back and will surely die. We don't even have a divine arts practitioner in our team. Chen Wanyan shook his head. We have. The few of them looked towards him. Chen Wanyan smiled faintly. I have been suppressing my realm these few days so you guys can be at ease. I can break through any time and become a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. Yu Qinghong said, I've heard that the sects that rebelled have already started gathering towards the south, wanting to completely rid Eternal Peace Empire's power in the south. Numerous sects that were active near the capital city had all vanished without a trace. For example, Dragon Rider sect which had already moved to the south. Now the south of Surging River is completely the territory of the rebel army. With all the rebel sects gathered there, how many divine arts practitioners are there? With you being the only divine arts practitioners, they're absolutely no usefulness. Chen Wanyan frowned. Academician Qin's experience in the martial world is too shallow. He's too young, so how many times has he traveled throughout the martial world? With him leading us, everything points to disaster. No matter how high my cultivation is, I would be helpless. Junior Sister Sai, you haven't been talking. What's your opinion on this? Sai Yinxiang smiled shyly and didn't say a word. Everyone fell silent. Monk Yun Q sighed, it's better for us to choose 1 or 2 divine arts for escaping from floor of heavenly records. It might just be of use. The day finally came for departure. In front of Hall of Supreme Learning, a few hundred scholars gathered and the directorates inspected their own teams. Ships then flew in one after another and landed in front of Hall of Supreme Learning. The directorates then led their teams to board their own ships. Academician Qin, didn't you hire a ship? Jiu Linuan walked over with a beam on his face. This journey this time is pretty far, and if you were to walk there, you would need to walk for 10 days and more. You're an Imperial Academician, don't tell me you don't even bear to spend this little money. Qin Mu smiled with a calm composure. Thank you, Grand Chancellor, for troubling yourself with our matter. I got nothing but money. Therefore, I have hired a fast ship with a high price which would reach very soon. The furnace of the ship is forged by me, it's very fast. Chen Wanyan and the rest looked at one another in the eyes and thought, is indeed petty, even the furnace is made by himself. I reckon it's a small ship. However, he actually knows how to forge artifacts. He has never been to Hall of Divine Craft, so where did he learn to forge from? There's Hall of Divine Craft in Imperial College and they taught how to forge artifacts and treasures. The directorates of Hall of Divine Craft were also holding official positions in the Imperial Court. The supervisors of the shipyards and the armaments manufacturers were positions the directorates of Hall of Divine Craft must assume. Ever since Qin Mu entered Imperial College, he had not even been to Hall of Divine Craft once, therefore it was impossible for him to learn any knowledge on forging. Not long later, the ships started to fly up and left Imperial College on their own. Monk Yun Q and the rest became anxious as they waited, and suddenly, they saw a dilapidated ship sailing over shakily in the sky and landed in front of Hall of Supreme Learning wobbly. Our ship is here. Qin Mu smiled. Chen Wanyan, Yun Q, Yu Qinghong all frowned hugely. This ship was already filled with holes and air was leaking out from everywhere. Furthermore, the mast of the ship was also broken and there wasn't even a sail. A burly man with bare arms appeared on the ship and had a fierce look on his face. With one look, they knew he wasn't any good person. He was covered in tattoos and he waved towards Qin Mu while laughing. Old brother Qin, I'm late, I'm late. Qin Mu brought Hu Linga and the Dragon Qin forward with a smile. It's fine even if you're 1 or 2 days late. What happened to your ship? It was still fine the last time I saw you. How did it become like this in just a few days? Don't talk about it. I did another trip and met those bitches of Three Wonders Castle again. They released their insects to harm me, but my speed was too fast, thus we crashed into the swarm of insects and almost turned my treasure ship into a sieve. Fan Yunxiao chuckled as he looked at Chen Wanyan and the rest. Scholars, when you become officials in the future, please take care of me. I have turned good recently. Yun Q muttered, with this ship being so dilapidated, will it fall apart when we fly into the air? Qin Mu also had the same suspicions. This cloud-chasing pirate ship was simply too worn out and looked like it might fall apart any time. It won't. Fan Yunxiao patted his chest forcefully and assured, my brothers have already used runes to fortify the ship's body, thus it's extremely durable. Old brother Qin, can you help me forge an iron shell ship when you're free? You can help me refine 2 more furnaces and use black iron to forge the body of the ship. Wood is simply too brittle. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and replied, that would require quite a high price, just the black iron alone is a pretty large expense. Can you take out that much money? Furthermore, do you have the blueprints? Fan Yunxiao rubbed his hands forcefully and said, after robbing everywhere for these few days. Pooh, after doing business everywhere, I've saved quite a sum of money. If I add all my property together, it should be enough to make an iron shell ship. As for the blueprints, that wouldn't be easy to get. Everyone, please board the ship, we'll talk after we board the ship. Everyone boarded the ship and Yu Qinghong looked around. The mates of the ship were all covered in tattoos and looked fierce. Some even had scars on their bodies and some were missing a nose or an eye. With malicious aura leaking out from their bodies, they obviously didn't look like good people. This dilapidated ship gradually rose into the ship and slowly drove out of the capital city like an old bull pulling onto a dilapidated cart. Everyone looked at this situation and were even more dejected. Chen Wenyan whispered, the people on this ship aren't good guys. They are villainous people who rob people and they have extremely high abilities. Most of them are divine arts practitioners. Academician Qin has a shallow experience of the martial world and I reckon he must have fallen into the bandits' trap. We have to be careful on this journey so that we won't be robbed. Just as he said that, the dilapidated ship suddenly increased its speed and gave off a mournful whoosh as it broke through the air. Violent tremors came as the speed of the ship surpassed the speed of sound, crossing miles of distance in an instant. The few barrels of wine were flung away and exploded mid-air as they got smacked by the air. Everyone immediately stabilized themselves and looked at their surroundings in aghast. They saw this dilapidated ship soon passing by all the ships which had already set sail a while ago, leaving these ships in the dust. The speed of this ship was so unimaginable. With this speed, they could reach Surging River in just a day or two. Qin Mu was long used to it. After all, he was the one who had forged the furnace, therefore, there was no need to be astonished. It's fine, it won't fall apart. Fan Yunxiao consoled everyone and said, I originally thought it would fall apart as well, but after ferrying passengers for a few trips, it has never fallen apart. It's likely not to fall apart this time. Whoosh! A peace deck board was lifted up by the gales and flew backward with a whoosh. Fan Yunxiao was full of confidence, don't worry, it won't fall apart. Second brother, bring a deck up. Bring one more up, another one was blown away. Relax, I'm experienced. Suddenly, the ship passed a raining region. It was currently raining there as the ship passed through the downpour, turning Fan Yunxiao's body all colorful. Hu Linga cried out in astonishment, Old Xiao, your tattoos got washed off by the rain. The other bandits on cloud-chasing pirate ship also had their tattoos blurred by the rain, and there was even a mate who shouted, Big brother, my scar got washed off by the rain. Fan Yunxiao was also slightly embarrassed and said, when you disembark later, we can find painters to paint it back on again. However, we've all turned good, it seems there's no need for us to paint tattoos anymore. Second brother, take off your eye patch, you see, you've scared those few scholars. The second mate took off his eye patch and revealed a perfectly fine eye. Monk Yun Q muttered, the appearance of these bandits doesn't look too reliable. However, Qin Mu was very close to the head of the bandits and took out a computational cannon to consult Fan Yunxiao. Hu Linga found a handkerchief and wiped the dragon's head on Fan Yunxiao's back, and the dragon's head instantly disappeared. Fox, stop fooling around, Fan Yunxiao waved his hand. Hu Linga pouted her lips, I thought they were real tattoos, so they were painted on. Fan Yunxiao gave a dry laugh and muttered, how painful is that? Our body, hair, and skin are given to us by our parents, how can we anyhow draw on them? Qin Mu said, Senior Brother Fan, the Sh, Bai, Qian, Wan in computational canon of supreme mystery is not a problem, however, Yi, Jiao, Jing, Gai, Zi, Rang, Go, Jian, Zheng, Zai, Ji. These numerals are really too huge. What are they used to calculate? Is there a need for such huge numerals? I've also asked Dao Master before and Dao Master said they were used for immeasurable calculation. Fan Yunxiao said, between WAN and Yi is the WAN system. WAN becomes Yi. After Yi is the Yi system. Yi becomes Jiao, Yi Jiao becomes Jing, Yi Jing becomes Gai. Other than that, there's also no end to division. What's used after a single number is Fen, Li, Hao, Sai, Hu, Wei, Xian, Shao, Chen, Ai, Miao, Mo, Mo Hu, Kun Sun, Shu Yu, Shan Shi, Tan Shi, Chana, Liu De, Kong Shu, Qing Jing. What they used are decimals. Fen is 1/10, Li is 100th, so on and so forth. Qin Mu was astonished and asked, then what's Kong Shu and Qing Jing used to calculate? To calculate the smallest particle in vital qi. Fan Yunxiao continued, the 14th writing of Dao Sword requires runes to be imprinted in the smallest particles of the vital qi. It was impossible to cultivate it without calculation. Qin Mu was dumbstruck and felt his head aching as he looked at the computational canon of supreme mystery. If you forge all kinds of treasures, you also need to use these calculations and the slightest error could result in a world of difference. Qin Mu acknowledged and exclaimed in admiration, Dao Sect's attainment in algebra sure is extraordinary. He consulted sincerely and Fan Yunxiao told him everything that he knew. Fan Yunxiao had already cultivated to the 5th writing of Dao Sect and had an extremely high attainment in algebra. Yi, 100 million, Jiao, 1 trillion, Jing, 10 quadrillion, Gai, 100 quintillion, Zi, 1 septillion, Rang, 10 octillion, Go, 100 nonillion, Jian, 1 undecillion, Zheng, 10 duodecillion, Zai, 100 tridecillion, Ji, 1 quindecillion. Fen, 1/10th, Li, 100th, Hao, 1,000th, Sai, 10,000th, Hu, 100,000th, Wei, 1 millionth, Xian, 10 millionth, Shao, 100 millionth, Chen, 1 billionth, Ai, 10 billionth, Miao, 100 billionth, Mo, 1 trillionth, Mo Hu, 10 trillionth, Kun Zun, 100 trillionth, Shu Yu, 1 quadrillionth, Shan Shi, 10 quadrillionth, Tan Shi, 100 quadrillionth, Chana, 1 quintillionth, Liu De, 10 quintillionth, Kong Shu, 100 quintillionth, Qing Jing, 1 sextillionth. Cloud-chasing pirate ship flew for over a day and finally reached Surging River. The ship sailed up to the camp at the southern bank. Lizhu Prefecture had set up a massive military force along the river. The army had linked over 200 river camps and there were numerous soldiers and horses. When they reached here, a fierce battle had just ended and there were ships rampaging on the river surface. Some ships were already destroyed and thick smoke billowed out from the burning masts and deck. Corpses floated on the river surface. There were soldiers scattering fishing nets on the ship, fishing the corpses out. They then hooked the corpses with hooks and hung them at the aft of the ship, intending to bury them after dragging them to shore. Qin Mu opened his green heaven's eyes and looked towards the opposite shore of the river. There was a dilapidated city on the opposite shore and there were still sporadic fightings because there were still all kinds of rays bursting forth from divine arts. However, they were only skirmishes. It should be the army of Eternal Peace Empire eradicating the enemies in the city. Fan Yunxiao slowed down the ship and gradually descended down towards the camp. There was a soldier who flew up to the ship to inquire, and when he knew they were the scholars of Imperial College, he immediately waved his flag and made the archers below lower their bow and arrow. The ship gradually landed in the camp and Fan Yunxiao looked towards the sporadic fightings on the opposite shore with one black eye and one white eye. He then took a glance at Chen Wenyun, Yun Qiu and the rest before shaking his head. Old brother Qin, these scholars will only hold you back and not be of much help. With a battle of this scale, the few of you scholars are completely no help and it'll be difficult for you guys to survive. I'm leaving. When I find enough black iron and blueprint of the treasure ship, I'll come and find you again. After he was done, he made the bandits on the boat activate the furnace and flew away. Yun Qiu and the rest were demoralized and Chen Wanyin sneered, this person's ability isn't bad, but there's a problem with his judgment. A general walked over and asked, Are you scholars from Imperial College? Qin Mu nodded his head and said, Is Liz Hu Prefecture young magistrate at the front lines? May I trouble you to inform her, just tell her Riverside County Qin Mu request for a meeting. That general was astonished and didn't dare to neglect his words as he hurried away. Not long after, the clanking sounds of armor sounded out and everyone looked towards the source of the sounds. They saw a female general clad in armor walking over with a helmet under her underarm. She had a heroic look and her facial features were also extremely beautiful. Her face powder, eyebrow liner, and red lips were unforgettable. She should have just come back from the battlefield and there were still bloodstains on her body. So it's little brother Qin Mu. Yu Yuan Chuyu's gaze fell on Qin Mu and her eyes lighted up. The little brother who walked out of Riverside County a few months ago has made a name for himself. I've heard my elder brother mentioning about you and now you're considered to have stood above others. I'm also happy for you. Big sister, you flatter me. Qin Mu blushed with shame and said, I didn't tell big sister before that I was actually from Great Ruins. Yu Yuan Chuyu said, when you had left, I was still thinking when there was a Qin family in Riverside County which could groom such an outstanding child. My elder brother sent a letter over and mentioned you later, and only then I knew you were from Great Ruins. Yun Qiu, Yu Qinghong, and the rest were secretly astonished. Liz Hu Prefecture was the place of lodging for all imperial scholars that came out for experience. Never did they expect that Qin Mu was actually well acquainted with Liz Hu Prefecture young magistrate. Being the high official of such a place, she was already the commander of the borders. In addition to that, Yu Yuan Chuyu had an extraordinary background. She was the princess of Yu Yuan Empire back then and the other crown prince of Yu Yuan Empire was Yu Yuan Chuyu who had become the great general in the capital city. Qin Mu was clearly the abandoned person of Great Ruins. How did he get affiliated with Yu Yuan Chuyu? Big sister Chuyu, what happened to Corpse Immortal Cult? Qin Mu asked. Corpse Immortal Cult has already been eradicated by me but there are still some remnants that have escaped to the southern borders. Yu Yuan Chuyu brought them to the city walls and said, the rebel army from everywhere have already gathered in the southern borders. There are also rebel sects from everywhere. All sorts of forces meet and mingle together here. The troops get stationed in all the cities along the river and are taking strict precaution. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg and the current situation doesn't look good. Tip of the iceberg, everyone was stunned for a moment. Yu Yuan Chuyu smiled, in the world today, do you know who is loyal and who is a traitor? For example me, I'm the princess of the vanquished Yu Yuan Empire, how would you know that I would not rebel the next moment? Chen Wanyan and the rest broke out in cold sweat, afraid that this heroic-looking female general would kill them in the next instant and announce that she would rebel. Yu Yuan Chuyu said indifferently, Imperial Court's relation to the old generations is too close. Imperial Preceptor wants to create a brand new generation on top of this foundation but all he could use were always the power of the old generation. His new generation could not break free from the influence of the old generation therefore who knows which sect or which official would rebel next. Monk Yun Q asked while shivering, but Lord Magistrate won't rebel, am I right? Yu Yuan Chuyu looked at him and gave a bone-chilling smile as she said softly, you can make a guess. If you're right, you cannot die. Yun Q turned ashen-faced as he was scared witless. Yu Yuan Chuyu, this commander had nurtured a great grandeur around her. Even though she was a woman, a cold expression could crush a person with terror. Yu Yuan Chuyu gave a gentle laugh and summoned a general over. After giving her instructions, the general immediately deployed an army with about 1,000 men. Yu Yuan Chuyu walked down the city halls and strode onto the river surface. Behind her, 1,000 soldiers also strode over and stepped on the river surface as they moved to the opposite shore. Qin Mu caught up with her and stood on the river surface. Vital chi burst forth under his feet which held him up stably as he smiled, Big sister, don't scare him. Chen Wanyan and the rest also hurried over and executed their own vital chi to let themselves not sink into the water. They could sprint on water but to walk calmly on water, it was slightly strenuous. Other than controlling the water, they also needed to have a dense cultivation. Yu Yuan Chuyu was slightly interested, little brother think I won't rebel against the imperial court. Qin Mu shook his head, because this rebellion is a setup by Imperial Preceptor to purge the Imperial Court and the ordinary people. Big Sister is a wise person and could see that very clearly. If Big Sister was dumb, you would have rebelled long ago and not wait until today. Yu Yuan Chuyu smiled. You're right and also wrong. The reason why I didn't rebel is not that I was clever enough. There were quite a number of people who came forward and urged me to rebel. They were all full of confidence when they came over, thinking they would definitely make me rebel. However, they were all wrong. My Yu Yuan family doesn't value our royal position, we value our people of Yu Yuan. When Yu Yuan Empire was still around back then, Eternal Peace Empire had already become great and they could wage a war over any time. My father knew if a war was to break out, the empire would definitely be ruined and the families would be torn apart. However, Imperial Preceptor came to Yu Yuan and discussed the path with my father. Back then, all the civil and military officials were there and what they discussed was how to govern an empire and their people. My brother and I were also at the Imperial Court. Then, we lost. Her expression remained calm as she said, we suffered a crushing defeat, which we accepted wholeheartedly, of the debate on the path of governing an empire and the path of people's welfare. My father relinquished the title of the emperor and allowed my elder brother to succeed him, but my elder brother didn't accept it and passed the title to me. She gave a smile. No now knew if she was mocking herself or if it was a genuine smile. I had told Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, I'm inferior to you in governing an empire and I'm also inferior to you in looking after the people's welfare. In that case, I'll hand you an empire to you. If your governance and people's welfare is not to my satisfaction, I will rebel against you in the future. Imperial Preceptor agreed and let me govern Yu Yuan, which is also the current Liz Hu. So that's how it is, everyone suddenly realized. Hu Linga cried out astonishingly, Sister, so you were actually a female emperor. Yu Yuan Chuyu smiled and said, being a female emperor for a day, I can tell you, that's no fun. If you want to be an emperor, you can just find any place and proclaim yourself as the emperor. The only problem is how many people you can have jurisdiction over. She looked at the billowing smoke and fire on the river surface and retracted her gaze. She then smiled as she looked at Chen Wanyan and the rest. It's your fortune you guys are able to follow little brother. His abilities are very extraordinary. Yu Qinghong and Yun Qiu looked at each other and didn't know how this female general saw Qin Mu's abilities as extraordinary. Yu Yuan Chuyu remembered the time when she had discovered the red corpse beetles scattered throughout the entire mountain at the north of Tiger Sun County. Other than the red corpse beetles, there was also a skeleton which had its flesh and blood melted away, leaving only the bones and the clothes. From the clothes, she could determine that it was an expert of corpse immortal cult. Even though she couldn't see who this expert of corpse immortal cult was, from the method of controlling the corpse beetles and amount of corpse beetles, that expert's cultivation had probably already reached 7 stars realm. Corpse immortal cult was proficient in corpses and poison, thus their cultivation realm was not that high. But when one clashed with corpse immortal cult, even people with a higher cultivation and battle prowess than them would find it very hard to defeat them. Yet this expert of corpse immortal cult had died from being poisoned, and the one that poisoned him would have been this little brother beside her who looked honest and naive. Back then, this little brother had even deceived her, making her write a travel permit for him and recommended him to go to the capital city. In Yu Yuan Chuyu's heart, for Chen Wanyan and the rest to be able to follow such a crafty fellow out for experience, they would be even safer than if they had followed the directorates, therefore she had said it was the fortune of Chen Wanyan and the rest. When they reached the opposite shore, the buildings in this city on the opposite shore had already collapsed, killing God knows how many people. Yu Yuan Chuyu led the army into the city and said, just now I said this was just the tip of the iceberg. There is still another reason other than that. Look at this, taking down Deer County was a walk in the park. We easily invaded and took over this place, so aren't the rebel army a little too weak? Qin Mu was slightly stunned, enticing the enemies to enter deeply. This is not only enticing the enemies to enter, the old foxes haven't even made their moves. Yu Yuan Chuyu's gaze flickered, the 3 old monsters that injured Imperial Preceptor still haven't appeared. The old monsters of the old generation might not just be the 3 of them. There are Passion Parting Palace Master Qiu Ji, the 3 castle lords of 3 Wonders Castle, high officials that have rebelled, Dragon King of Dragon Rider sect, and as well as other strong practitioners of the cult master level, and none of them have appeared yet. Other big and small cult masters, sect masters, all very quiet. Furthermore, she said in a low voice, who knows if there are any gods that had survived from the old generation. Qin Mu gave a few cold shudders. Chen Wanyan and the rest also felt their blood run cold. Yu Yuan Chuyu obviously knew many things about the old generation, but she didn't delve into details. You guys can be at ease, these old monsters wouldn't easily make their move on the younger generation like you. Their target is Imperial Preceptor and the first-ranking high officials of the Imperial Court. Deer County was seized by a sect not much bigger than Cork's immortal cult, which is called Nine Spectres Sect. Now that the rebellion in Deer County has just been quelled, and there are still some remnants from Nine Spectres Sect escaping, I'll give you an easy task: eradicate all of the remnants. Her gaze shone brightly as it landed on Qin Mu and the rest. Nine Spectres Sect is proficient in dressing up as God and playing the devil. They say they could invite supernatural beings forward to assist them in battle, therefore, you guys have to make some preparations. When the other scholars are here, you guys will go forward to eradicate them. This video will end here.